Welcome, everybody, to the C Suite Sherpas Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Marshall, where we focus a spotlight on great resources for the C-suite. And speaking of great resources, I've got Eric Brown with me today from Imperio Consulting. So, Eric, tell us a bit about your business.
Hey, thanks for having me on today. At Imperio Consulting, we apply a specialized, repeatable approach to leadership and team performance based on my 25 years of Special Forces service. We take that passion of adaptive leadership and turn it over into the private sector. I launched Imperio because I saw a gap in organizations on how they manage change. I wanted to provide a roadmap and help them thrive in our ever-shifting environment we have going on now.
Yeah, that's great. I think you and I have a similar passion. We were talking about this before we started the podcast, that I think you and I both see that there's a deficiency in leadership in business. And I think a lot of leaders are broken and they're creating a lot of unnecessary chaos. And quite frankly, it's causing a lot of burnout in the workplace. So I appreciate what you're doing. So give me some examples of maybe what you've learned in the military and how that translates into private business.
Yeah, people really forget a lot in the military. It's still a big organization, structured and framework, just like a business is. So what we really have seen in business today is lacking a lot of structure and standardizing how they do things. A lot of the knowledge is based on one person's head, and when that person leaves, it's gone. What we try to do is take what we learned working on small elite teams as Green Berets of writing down those processes, systemizing it, and helping them be able to work better on what they're trying to do, and also keep that process for the next folks so they don't have that knowledge loss as people do their succession plan.
Yeah, you mentioned Green Beret. So if I understand correctly, you served in the Special Forces and you
Yep.
were a Green Beret.
Yep. So for folks who don't know what a Green Beret is, part of the U.S. Army. Within the U.S. Army, you have Special Forces, and within Special Operations, right? So you have all the different like Rangers and folks like that. And one portion of the Special Operations community are U.S. Army Green Berets, who are specially selected and trained in unconventional warfare, where we go forward and help. Our motto is to free the oppressed, help those in need and train them to overcome their challenges.
Yeah, no, I did appreciate it. And again, thanks for your service. I know about my friends that I have that were SEALs or Green Berets or Army Rangers. One of the key areas of leadership is first and foremost accountability. Taking accountability for all your decisions, no victim, no blaming. Basically, every decision you make has a consequence. And so in business, I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of, it's not my fault, I didn't know. Tell me a little bit about how you translate some of those key characteristics of a successful military leader, like discipline, great clarity in terms of direction and expectations, and ultimately accountability. What are some of the things you do to translate that into business? How would you help a business leader adopt some of those principles and mindsets?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. One thing we try to make them understand that we at Imperio and within Special Forces go by a motto: "Show me, don't tell me," which is leading from the front, leading by example. Another thing that we try to instill into people is when you're in charge, you're responsible for everything that your team does and doesn't do. It still falls on you. You're the one that is put in charge, and that's the heavy crown that you wear. How we try to help corporate leaders is help them and how they communicate, help them understand what a leader does, and then give them what we call the Green Beret approach of looking at challenges and making it systematic to overcome them.
When you think about business, and you've been doing this for a while now, what are some of the biggest challenges moving forward going to be with the kinds of clients you serve? What's the big challenge you see coming up? And then how do you help clients overcome that?
Yeah, so a big challenge I'm seeing right now is organizations are struggle to align their people and processes quickly enough to keep up with change. A lot of our clients are in the midst of either a big merger and acquisition or bringing new folks on. And how do you blend those cultures of new people coming in and old people going out? We come in and give them a systematic approach to help them streamline their communication, foster agile leadership, and create powerful teams that actually communicate with each other and know more about each other than just what they talk about in meetings, more so outside of that, and really understand each other, how they tick, both on the work side and personal side.
Yeah, I think doing that, you start to build trust. And I think the foundation of any high performing team, if you think about going back to your military days, you probably trusted each of the men in your unit with your life. You had to. If you're thinking about it in combat, you're dead. If you're thinking about it in business, you're losing opportunity. The world is changing faster than we can plan and we can execute. And so by default, we're falling further and further behind every day if we keep doing things the way we used to do them. The old model of 25-year plans or 10-year plans, forget it. If you're planning outside of a year, I mean, I always tell people, think about what happened in 2019, December of 2019, you're doing your plan for 2020. I can guarantee you your 5-year plan didn't have anything that's happened over the last 4 years.
True
Right? Yet
statement.
we still stick with these rituals that used to serve us well. So yeah, I think this idea of becoming agile and adapting quickly is critical. So that's a great skill set. If you're listening to this and your team isn't keeping up and your team's not executing well, it starts with you as a leader, and somebody like Eric can help you with that. So that's awesome. So one last question about the business, and then we'll transition here. When you think about moving forward, and I just talked about how crazy it is to think about the future, but think about the next couple of years. How do you see business evolving? And typically, if you're a tech person, we'll talk about, oh, AI is going to change the world. But how do you see business evolving? And how are you going to help your clients stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I say on how business is going to evolve, it's still going to be very rapid developments, especially in the technology. And you're going to have to be able to customize and change your plan on the fly, being able to adapt to what you see. And you got to refine your methods to not be afraid of, especially AI or new technology coming out. You got to be able to integrate it. If you don't integrate into technology, you'll end up being like Blockbuster, right? They had the chance to buy Netflix, and they're like, nah, we're just gonna keep with our proven method. Gone. There's multiple examples of that. Same as Kodak with their film printing when that was switching to digital. I don't see that changing. I mean, you can look at the change of how much AI is integrated in our lives in the past 12 months. So just use it and make it that much better for what you're doing in whatever industry that you're in.
I'm a history buff and I study civilizations, and you think about the S curve of any civilization or enterprise, the very thing that makes them great and their strength ultimately becomes their weakness. Kodak had a huge stake in printing photos and film processing and photography. And for them to actually adopt the digital model means that they had to basically cannibalize their business. And that's the problem, right? When we're really good at something and it stops working, we stick with it because we don't want to change, because we get comfortable. And so I think helping leaders get out of their comfort zone and actually become, and I've always said, I love to help leaders become uncomfortable with being comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, that means you're not changing, you're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
And by definition, if we all buy into the idea that the world is changing faster than we can keep up with it, you're going to be dead as a company. You're going to find yourself going out of business. And we're going to see a lot of companies that are name brands today that 5 years from now won't be around because they didn't make the shift. So again, as a leader, if you're listening to this, if you're comfortable with where your business is, I'm afraid for you, because that means that you're probably not investing and you're not really changing things before they're broken, because you don't have that kind of luxury. Somebody else is going to out innovate you. Those are great insights, Eric. I appreciate that. I wish we had more time to spend and talk, but we are going to shift to what I call the lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a series of quick questions. Just answer with whatever comes to mind for you. All right. Are
Sure.
you ready?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yep. If you can only grab one weapon before the zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
AR-15.
A favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Lift up others so they can help themselves.
Yeah. How about favorite movie?
I don't think I have one, man. I can't pinpoint one down of a favorite movie for you. Like too many movies.
How about,
like
is
them all.
there a streaming series you're watching or anything on Netflix or any of the streaming services that you recommend?
Yeah, what I just watched the other day. I think it was called 24.
Yep.
I think with had story of Norwegian resistance. No, not
Okay.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. 24 hours that they
Resistance and Norwegian of a guy going through fighting against the Nazis.
How about a book? Favorite book that you recommend?
I'm gonna be cheesy and I'll say my book, The Green Beret Approach, A Practical Approach to Leadership.
So
there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Shameless plugs are welcome. How would someone get a hold of your book? Is that on Amazon or is it digital? How would somebody get that?
Yes, sir. It'd be on Amazon. Just type in the Green Beret Approach, Eric Brown, and it should pop up.
All right, cool. Well, we'll make sure we put that on the description of this video for the channel. So if you're watching this, check the description of the video on our YouTube channel, and you'll find not only Eric's contact information, but you'll find out how to get his book. Let's talk about bucket lists. So tell me about a bucket list item that you've already accomplished.
Bucket list item I've already accomplished. I would say just knocking down the amount of different countries I've been to. I think I've been to about 36 different countries across the world. So just keep increasing that number.
How about a bucket list item you haven't accomplished yet?
Never made it to Bali.
Okay, cool. Biggest obstacle that you've ever had to overcome in your life personally, and what's one lesson that you took away from it? I
would say one of the big obstacles I had, one of our deployments to Afghanistan, I lost 3 very close friends of mine, and it took a lot to bounce back from that because we were still, and I had another 6 months of that combat deployment left. So that was a really hard point for me and the rest of my team because the Green Beret team is only 12 folks. So you imagine 12-man team and 3 lose their lives in one day. So coming back from that was probably one of my biggest challenges and obstacles I've had.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Again, I appreciate your service, and I don't think people appreciate the sacrifice that men and women of the military make, and I hope we never take it for granted. But, you've been through a lot, and now you're here to help people in the civilian side of things with business become great leaders. And so, again, love what you're doing. Anything I can do to help you, that's why we have you as a guest on the podcast. So, Eric, how can people, if they're listening to this and they're going, hey, I really want to get in contact with Eric, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I'd say the best way you can contact with us is through our website at www.imperio-consulting.com. Okay. And also you can always find me on LinkedIn with just typing in Eric Brown and Imperio.
And we'll go ahead and post it on the bottom of the video description on our YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this, you didn't quite get it, don't worry. Check the bottom of the description. It'll have all Eric's contact information and a little bit about Eric and how to get his book. So Eric, man, appreciate you being on the podcast. Look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Anytime.